Okay, folks, modo dudes and dudesses. Here's a hard-to tutorial on low poly to low poly enhancements. And it's also an insight into what you can do in Modo. I'm using 901. Don't let that put you off. It's been a bit mental. This is a customized view. My own personal way of working is just built into the interface. Yeah, quick tools and stuff like that you can use as well, but I just prefer it right in front of me. And have hotkeys assigned to other trickeries that I want for myself. So this is basically my setup at the minute. Yeah, I'm using hotkeys and work with Excel and other programs, and my head just gets melted. You know, every program's got its own set of hotkeys, and hats off to the people who can jump from one to the other without issues. But anyway, I'm starting to rant. So what are we going to do today? Tonight, end of the week, I'm having a few glasses of wine and just decided to fire this out. I'll show you quickly what we're going to be doing. There's all my images. Normal maps. An AO map and an alpha map. And you might be saying, well, what the hell is this? I'm going to explain it. So I'll just do, instead of talking, make a box. Yeah, and just duplicate that and take that as the high poly. I'll just call this HP high poly. And yeah, what am I doing? Low poly. Okay, the whole idea was to get some, instead of creating high poly objects all the time, I'm breaking down high poly detail into low poly objects. I'm just decided to go on a bit of a rampage and see what I can come up with in Modo from low poly to low poly. So I'm calling this high poly. It's not a high poly, but it's going to have detail put onto it, faked onto it, and baked down onto the low poly, which was the idea for, I will open this quickly just to show you. Modular corridor is this is for my lower regions. Sounds a bit ominous. Service entrance tunnel. I wanted it to look old-fashioned, basic, rarely used. It's going to be actually inside rock. It's going to be surrounded by rock. Wet, moldy, rusty. Lights. Some of the lights are working, some aren't. Type of corridor, you can call it sci-fi or not, and in the level it's going to build up and become more advanced as you go up into the higher regions for different levels, just like you would see in, I think Doom 3 was a perfect example of it. The lower regions were dirty, grungy, oily, and then you go up into the higher regions, you get more sci-fi, more technical type of corridors. But the problem with this, I wanted to add, perforated steel here, and also on this floor I want really small perforations. Plus I want to use the rounded edge shader on this, so I want this slightly rounded. You are going to get the issues at the 90-degree angles. with the rounded edge shader. I'll see if I can actually do that quickly and let you see what I'm talking about. Have I got a material on this? Really want that. So we're in the completely wrong view. I'll just change that output to final color. And of course you can't see diddly jack shit like that. So is that actually doing anything? On this high poly? New. We've got new material, and I will add the rounded edge on that. So you can see it's completely smoothed that out. It's going to be really slow because of I'm recording this. If I drop that down to about 1. I think 1's all I need for this, you know, you can see it immediately. And you still get these issues where that's running off. That's just the issue with the rounded edge shader. So use it sparingly, it gives you a nice smooth your low poly off, and with a diffuse on top of this and ambient occlusion, this is not really going to be striking from, you know, the player's point of view. You're not going to really see it. You are going to see that it's rounded slightly. So I'll close that and we'll get started. So that's the idea, to get nice and rounded and to add detail using displacements to the parts that I want. So you are effectively you're going from low poly to low poly. So let's get stuck in and I'll show you what I mean. Close this scene, then save it. Big tests. Right. There's issues with this. Like everything with game art, there's freaking issues with everything. And personally, in my opinion, this, if you can get this workflow down, if you can really get this down so you know what you're doing, you can come up with some serious funky shit on low poly to low poly bake. Means you're not, you know, you don't have to model everything in high poly, which you're going into hard surface modeling, which is a technique you really have to learn. I'm getting there slowly and surely, but it is can be a pain. Actually, making the high poly is not a problem. It's getting a low poly from it and getting decent bakes from it. That's the headache in regards to my skill set. And so that's why it got me thinking, how can I take a low poly, duplicate it and just enhance it. So without further ado, I will add, I'll select all these polys, add a material, call it high poly matte, turn the diffusers up to 100. Just make sure your high poly doesn't have UVs, of course. Put a low poly, and I will select them all, add a material. No polymat. I'm actually melting here in my room, the door's closed so there's no background noise. Or keep the background noise at the bare minimum. And then having a nice glass of red wine, maybe 3 or 4 of them by the time this is finished. Okie dokie, so we've got the textures. Not my favorite way to UV a box regarding smoothing and edges, but it depends on your model situation. If you, that model that I just showed you, those flat panels that I want perforations in, they're perfect. I don't need to. I just need to, use a projection tool. They're not connected to anything. They're just going to be one poly or 4. So that's the first way you can UV a box, and we'll get cracking. Select your high poly, go to your shader tree, try and keep things in order. So if your high poly is on top, keep your material on top. Go to add layer. I'm going to use the dots for this example, and this is one of the really powerhouses that is under the hood of Modo, which I've just started recently exploring. This is just a texture. You can really set up a lot of funkiness with this, just with this. If you go to enhance modo textures, you've got, honestly, you could spend months going through all these exactly the same way as what I'm going to show you right now. So this, what I'm showing you now, applies across the board here. And you can also add your image map, because you're going to be using displacements. So I'll select the dots, diffuse color. You're not going to notice anything, you have to render it. So render preview. So this is the perforation that I was talking about. You can see it's pretty useless right now because it's only on one side. That's the way it's being projected. So you go to texture locator, change the projection type to cubic. That's more like it. And it's a bit big. And so if you go back to your texture layers with the dot selected, you can drop that down to whatever you want. To drop it down to half, 50%. You can go even further, which I will be. I'll be going down to, I think it was it 2, maybe even less, 1% for that floor that I showed you. And I'm going to be increasing the spread of this, and that's what you have to do with the texture locator. So I change the size. Was it increase? I'm not sure actually. Nope. We got a decrease. Let's go to 10. So you can see what's happening here. 2. So that may look a little bit crazy, but that's exactly what I want on my floor. I want that it looks like it's perforated metal. Go back to auto size, and I will increase that to 50. So on the side panels I want it bigger. And that's it set up. That's basically our displacement. There's a problem with displacement, which you're going to see right now. Bam! It looks nice. But you also get this big dirty gap in the middle. And people, there's loads of ways of masking and blah blah blah, and I just, I cannot be arsed pissing around in the shader tree with masks just to get rid of this. When the solution was just staring me right in the face. Padding, UV padding, solves this issue in your normal map. As I'll show you, I've baked all of you've seen the maps at the start of this. I've already baked them down because it takes to bake a normal map for this on this cube takes about just under 3 minutes, like 2 minutes and 53 seconds, which isn't bad. AO map is about a minute extra, so you're just under 4 minutes. And the problem here is, because these edges are split like this, the displacement is causing a split. If you want to add the rounded edge shader to this, it won't work on the edges. It actually works on the circles, the perforations. So if you add a little bit, maybe 2 to that, you might not see it. It might not be really apparent now, but in your normal bake, these rounds will be a lot smoother because of the rounded edge. And you'll probably notice on some parts of this is really jaggedy and horrible looking. This is Modo's render. This won't be baked out like this. It had me actually literally freaked out. I was going, I know. I had something nice, and then you get this. So this is nothing to worry about. When you see this, just ignore it, because it does not get baked in your normal map. The render gets calculated properly, so the mesh has actually been subdivided into the millions. That's why it takes so long to bake. So if you've got your displacement, and it doesn't have to be dots, I'll just show you quickly what other textures. Grid, say you want some metal grid, you can see the rounded edge shader working there, because it's not being displaced. We'll do the same for this texture locator. We'll stick it to cubic, so you got a nice grid and line width. You can increase or decrease this. I'm just going to show you this quickly. So there you go. And don't forget, with no low poly selected, so you are getting this rounded shader business going on here, and you will get of course, the box poking through. If I turn this off, the edges of the box are still sticking through, so if you round that off, you get a nice, not too much. That's the thing about the rounded edge shader, people go mad with it and expect fantastic results. You go, this looks like chocolate, like a chocolate bar. And you could use, let's see what happens if I get them both on. Let's hope Modo doesn't crash. Nothing happens. But if I put that above and I change this to a mask, if I can find mask. Shader control, yeah. Layer mask. And I'll try group mask. Yeah, there you go. So you play around with masks, you can get even more diversity. You can also, I'm going to turn that grid off just to get rid of it. You can also, remember, you can add materials per poly, which is beautiful in Modo. It's just, this is fantastic. So you can have grid here, dots here, something else here. So you can think about it and try and put it in the perspective of the low poly or your fake high poly, that you can have so much detail just by doing this technique, what I'm going to show you. in so many different variations. It's a bit mental. You'll see now that nice rounded edge is gone once this renders. Zoom, because the edge is actually they're being pulled apart. So there's a solution for this. This is my workflow is to UE4, Unreal Engine 4. There's a lot of scripts out there for blending two different normal maps. You can do it in Photoshop. I've tried this way, and this is bloody nice. You're increasing your material calculations. That's a given, but you've got to be, we've got to start. I think we've got to start being a bit more realistic about, the amount of verts that are being used and the amount of resources that you're using in your materials. You have to be a bit more 2015 would be the best way to describe it. So this setup has got I'll add a link to this post. We gotta explain them what this is. This setup is two normal maps, blended properly. Note what I just said, properly. So you can see the actual end result here. It's beautiful. It works bloody flawlessly. So you could get rid of your dots. You could bake two normal maps. You can bake your rounded edged normal map, and then you can bake your displacement normal map with the dots included. Because the rest, the ambient occlusion, the alpha map, which you're actually going to be creating, the alpha is going to create the holes here, and the curvature map to get detail on the curves are, you're going to be using the same situation as the padding. So in your ambient occlusion map, this is all going to be closed. This gets closed on your normal map. I'll actually change that output to object space normals. If you are not using 901, you don't have the ability to use James Firefire's Vertex Normal Toolkit to view your cage, push your cage, and you don't have the option to bake to UE4. And there's actually, I don't have an image here, there's actually options for Unity and Source Engine. So if you're using 801, you have to bake out a object space normal map, and then you have to convert it in X normal, which is an extra step. It can be a pain in the arse. I'm glad to see the back of X normal. Never liked it. I just freaking hated it. You've got more options now. You've got Mighty Bake on the market, and you've got here, I've got Canaled, which is fantastic. New software for baking. But the whole idea is just to get everything inside Modo, to get the most out of Modo. You know what I'm saying? I want to get the most out of the program for game art, and then drop it into Substance Painter, Quixel, and the likes, Photoshop, and then get it into the engine. So this was the whole change that back to final color. This was the whole idea. So we've got our displacement set up. It's nice, and I've got a rounded edge on these circles. These dots are going to be nicely even more rounded. You'll notice this in ambient occlusion as well. So to save time, I've already baked this out, so I'm not sitting here. You've got almost 3 minutes per bake, and I've did various different maps to show you different problems that will arise. If you bake this with a cage, this type of displacement, you're going to get skewing. it's called. And the best way to explain this is to let you see it. What is skewing? Import mesh, it is box UVs, can't remember. Yeah, that's an UV. I'm doing 2 different UV sets. Keep that in mind. So this is our box. Add the normal map. This is with cage. And I will set that to RGB. Can anyone see a problem with those circles? I think it's pretty instant. You can see the screen here. Especially it's more prominent on the outside. On the inside, and then it all falls in, it just falls to pieces in the middle. That's what skewing gives you. And you don't have the nice rounded edge here. Actually maybe turn that backdrop off. There's no rounded edge here. Turn the gloss down. And you've got a lot of skewing. When you've got the top view, you can see it perfectly. This is caused by cage. So for all the bonus that you get from a cage bake, with this type of low poly to low poly using displacements, this isn't going to work. This is going to look like shit. If it's something at a distance, you can really do very quick UVs, just like that box UV. If it's at a distance, you're not really going to notice this. The player is not going to say, Jesus Christ, man, those hoes are skewed from like 100 meters away. So that's the with the cage, and the NC is no cage. There you go, you can see it immediately. Perfect. I've just calculated the distance. So you get perfect circles. That's our bases, by the way, keep in mind. Normal, people think with a normal map you really have to make this thickness, it has to be really deep. You know, it doesn't work like that. Normal maps are, you can have, this could even be lighter, so I could actually change the, let me see. I'll close this. I want to save it. The render preview. The render preview, by the way, is fantastic in modo. 901. I don't use GL anymore. Ray GL. I'm done. And we're going to be getting advanced viewport performance upgrades with service packs, so I'm looking forward to that. All in all, it has been a buggy nightmare, but this side of modo is working really well for me. I'm very impressed with it. Sometimes it looks like it's about to crash, or it's not reacting, it's just been not responsive, and then it just clicks in and it works as it should. So patience is a virtue. But overall, it is generally the rendering they've definitely worked hard at it to make it a lot more better. Credit where credit's due. Okay, so what was I talking about? Now it's just went out of my head completely. Maybe it's the wine and the tiredness. End of the week. Oh yeah, displacement depth. Let me just decrease that to stick it to 1. That's also enough. The difference between the 1 and the 2 is your gap, for starters, and the length of time it's going to take to render the site. So if I go to 0.5, And what you could do is you could increase the depth for your ambient occlusion and decrease it for your normal map, because you don't really need this. Some people really think that you need to go a depth of 4, really heavy displacement. It's not necessary when it comes to normal maps. Keep that in mind. Normal maps. See that massive difference? Does definitely, there's a point that it does look better for ambient occlusion and a curvature map. It would be maybe beneficial, but in general I don't see the point to it. 2 is just middle ground. It's good enough. Still got that gap, as again I've got the padding at 64. You can increase it if you want, and you get rid of that gap. That's what you just seen on that model, which was baked with I'll go to my quick UVs. This type of UV. So this type of UV's got less seams, and I don't want smoothing groups. I'm not going to bother with smoothing groups on this low poly stuff. Maybe in the future I will bother with it, but at this point I'm not interested in smoothing groups. It's just bog standard. Get the details out, and if you see where I'm actually using it, smoothing groups aren't going to help me. You know what I mean? Some models are just you're going to have to unwrap, and some models you can use the projection tool. So I have this as that demonstration I showed you is that type of UV. I'll actually get rid of those and show you exactly what I did with the rest. Delete projection tool, set to Atlas. Boom. There's another. I've made another clip tutorial explaining about this split, the smoothing split, on YouTube. I can't remember the name, but it's there somewhere. And once these are split, and you've got padding here, it's basically perfect roundness. You get a nice rounded edge on it. You're increasing your vert count. You're introducing seams. But we've got techniques now, you know, to paint over seams and decals and the rest of the workarounds for seams. There's, you know, it's all about balance. Game art is definitely about balance. What works for what situation? One situation it works, and the other it doesn't. So I just packed these to 64. That was my gap. And I moved them. I have to change the grid, the normal grid, or I can't move it up. I just think I moved it to here. Done. That's it. And I'll show you the result of that type of UVing in Marmoset. Import the mesh. This is the UVs that I just created, that you just seen. With the cage. The skewing is present, so it's like it's going out from here in the middle. It looks pretty nice, and then it starts going to the shits as it goes through the corners. That's because of the cage. And you can see these edges all turn down that. Flip those. There you go. The cage is causing this. And I'm going to show you why it's causing this, because I've got this box, high poly, which is not. Select all of them. To overcome creating two maps, where was that? Here. To overcome this, create one map with the smoothness, rounded edge, because you can't use a rounded edge on displacement. I came up with this idea, and it actually works bloody nice. Because this is horrible. And this is using a cage on this idea. You can see I've created these polys. I've beveled in, and I've put two materials on this. I've got here the displacement on the main, the large polys, and these corner polys. I've added another material, and that is a rounded edge. So I've got the displacement going on here, and on these edges I've got the rounded edge. And you can see with the cage bake it just looks like shit. It's picking up this the difference between this material and that material. Again, at a distance you could probably get away with that, but the skewing and everything in it just doesn't work out for me. I don't like it when you're doing this type of technique. So the idea was pretty simple, was to bevel the high poly, the fake high poly. I think I beveled it at 2. Yeah, that's exactly what I did. Yeah, so I beveled, recruit polygons deselected. I go to select invert. Hold on a second. Here you gotta add new material. This is high poly. Displacement. High poly displacement. Yeah. And select invert and a new material, high poly rounded. And again, that's the beauty of Modo. I've got now two materials for one model. So you could have 10 materials if you want on this box. You could divide this box into whatever you want and add whatever material you want using displacement. And it's something that's not really, there's no videos about this explaining this, how it can help you with game art. So that's why I decided to just show my findings, and you can play around with it yourself. Okay, so we've now got a bit of a mess here. As you can see, low poly we can leave alone, we don't need to touch that. This is the rounded, so I'll turn this off. High poly material, we can turn that off too. We don't need that anymore because we're not using it. We're using the high poly displacement because this is these faces. The rounded is here. Sorry. Yeah, this is what we want rounded. So I change the material to rounded level and stick it on 3. Render preview, see how it looks. Lovely. Perfect. That's what I want. Dots, we already had it set up, so we just drag and drop it in there. Turn off the low poly isn't there. Turn this on, of course. And let me see, why are you not working? Because I don't have it switched on. So you can see immediately, again, the problem's still there, but that edge is rounded. You know what I mean? This is one model, there's no low poly under this is actually one model. I've just used these faces for the displacement. This, it depends on your bevel, you could increase it or decrease it. But we've got both now. We're going to break this down into one normal map, which removes this So you've got two options. You can bake down two maps, one with displacement, one with rounded, and blend them in the game engine like I just showed you. Or you can do it this way. This way you get both. If you use a cage on this, you've got the issues of the skewing, and it also picks up this edge here. If you don't use a cage, you get this. Again, I've already baked this out, so normals, nice. You still get that, you know, the low poly coming through, but you really have to go, you know, you have to be a head case in the game to go up really close to that and see, I don't like this. I'll add a light to the scene. I'll show you what I mean. It's a lot easier doing it this way. Oop. And remember, folks, we're still on PBR here. So I'll turn down the sky brightness. I'll just turn that off completely, and you can see here how good that is. You know, you gotta admit that at a distance that just looks freaking nice. No smoothing groups again now. I think it's my fetish. Game art without smoothing groups, because smoothing groups in Modo are just shite compared to what people have in Maya. It's just they're bad. So you know that's freaking nice, in my opinion. It just looks nice. Of course, you're going to have the seam issue, but you can paint over seams. Turn it back up again. I've increased the gloss, so it's really shiny metal. We're up to the maximum gloss. Intensity is this total mirror, and I think that just looks damn good. And that's just your normal map, okay? So to apply your, right now I'm just doing normals. You can see it actually better here, the screen. If you see, you can see this is without a cage, and this is with a cage. So you can see it's being skewed to bits. It's nonsense. Skewing also is if you bake ambient occlusion map with a cage. And people will say, well, why would you want to do that? There are definitely advantages of using a cage when you're doing a ambient occlusion map, AO map. Definitely. There's no doubt about it. Because you're baking from the high poly to the low poly. And you're getting, if you use a cage and you've got those edges that are just need to be rounded off with the cage, or they're not getting picked up. It won't, in your normal map, they won't be picked up in your ambient occlusion map. But in this case, using a cage with your AO, you can do it. It's not as prominent as this. It's there, but it's not as prominent. This just looks better. And again, you can see that the gaps have been removed because of the padding. So keep that in mind. This is our new UVs with the rounded edge shader, again with a cage, and this is without a cage. So it's a lot tighter, a lot neater, as you just seen in Marmoset. Turn the gloss right down. That looks fucking nice. Pardon my German. And now we'll go on to the if you want to view UVs in the way they are baked linear. I've got everything set up here for myself. Got my outputs, bake options, add a cage, add image, padding, and render size and stuff. I just I can't work any other way. I need to have it like this. And these are just for the future. You can always click on how to, I can add a whole list here. So it's customized version of Modo. Works like a charm. I don't like the new layout here, switching everything, so I'm not going to switch now to render mode with displacements on this screen size, because it's just going to slow the whole tutorial down. But you can see this is what it will look like. Linear. So when you bake a UV map in 901, you need to set up first your image map, RGB, no alpha, you don't need the alpha, and linear. And it's the same goes for your object space normals. I'll show you that quickly. Which is just a shaded normal output. You need channels I don't have here, because I've already got this set up. It should actually be here. Color space should be set to linear, and remap pixel values. So what this is exactly what you just seen for UE4, when a UE4 is baked automatically here. The step of converting from modo to X normal from an object space normal map is removed. I'll show you quickly render preview. And he doesn't want to do it. There he is. Okay. So you see you've got identical as UE4 bake. You're going to have to do the same thing manually. You have to bake from object to object to render outputs. Then you have to convert that map to a tangent space map. It's actually synced, so it will work in UE4, and you'll get identical results. So don't worry about that. If you need any infos or how to do that, then give me a shout and I'll help you set it up. So I'll show you quickly the ambient occlusion. You don't want this. This normal map setup won't work for your AO using these two different materials. So you have to go to the original material, which is your high poly mat at the start. Get rid of these. I'll stick on that. Let's see if this actually is going to work. And that's typical Modo shader tree behavior, because I've added new material, the original material. Maybe it will work now because there's no material set up or selected. No, it's not going to work. And what I found an actually, in my opinion, it's a serious bug. Polygons by material. Area items. This, I can't delete that. It's still selected. I've already filed this because this has to be brought back to 801. You need to be able to add materials and then delete them. Here I can't, this is like it's fixed, and this is what you're seeing right now. This high poly material should be displacing that mesh, and it's not. But it doesn't matter. You should get the drift. So this is our AO bake. Again, that gap has been closed with padding. I'm actually a little bit disappointed why this isn't working. So I'll just delete those. I'll delete the high poly material. And you don't need to get rid of these. This is if modo functions properly the way it should. I can't do this now because this is a bug, definite bug. I've already reported it. I have to delete everything and then select everything again, add a new material. I'll just call this high poly AO, and we will add the dots in again. Displacement, I know what it was set up, it was 50. Solid, cubic. You can also use UV maps where you can go deeper into the fucking madness. You can get right into the nitty gritty if you want to UV different parts of your fake high poly. You've got the option to use your UV map, so keep that in mind, experiment with it. Let's see if this is working. Yeah, there we go. And it looks nice and horrible. Dots on displacement. I'll just set that round. This shouldn't be baked. If I do an IO bake, this shouldn't be like this. This is the problem with this bloody version of Modo. And materials, it's just it's a problem. This, but anyway, when you bake out your AO, it'll look like this. So we have our normal map. I'm going to add the ambient occlusion. That's our AO. Add it to our normal. You can of course change the strength. You can add here your cavity map, which I'll do in the second part. Cavity map. So you can see that's one note about Modo's AO is ambient occlusion. It's fantastic. It's the best I've seen out of all the programs. The more you increase the res, this is baked at 2K with 512. Let me see if I've got it here set up.
What's up, bass drive? I just realized
render output.
And I've been playing for an hour. So hi.
512. If you increase that
Sorry about the train wreck.
from 512 to 240, the same size as your map, it's going to take like 4 times longer, but you're going to get real serious detail in that AO. And depending if it's a close-up, then I suggest you do that. But you can see those edges. Now we've got our AO map, normal map, that's it, and you can see how bloody good that looks. onto the alpha map. This is tricky because this isn't working anymore. I mean, this high poly material and this high poly mesh has just stopped working because of that material problem. So I'm just going to go back to final color. I'm going to get rid of the cage. I don't need the cage because I'm not baking with cage. Let's see, low poly. This, there is no cage actually because I've already pre-rendered these. I'll just get rid of that. I could duplicate the low poly. And that's the beauty about it because you're not changing the geometry at all. Delete this. Delete Pete. High poly. And this is for our alpha map. Select all the polys. Items. Material. High poly matte. Done. Go to our add layer because we need the dots, and we want to change the dots to diffuse color. Was it? Actually, I'm having trouble remembering. There are different ways to bake out alpha maps. In this situation, because you're using displacement, if you don't have padding around your UVs, you're going to get horrible edges running through here. So your alpha map won't work correctly. It'll work nice on the spots, but on the edges you're going to get white. Sorry, black. So you're going to see through the edges, which is not what we want. So I've got my diffuse set up. I'll just set this up again quickly. And properties. Why is it mixed? I don't get it. Why is it mixed? Solid, cubic. I had it at 50. So we've got to go texture layers. 50. That's what we want. That is in fact an alpha map. Black is off, white is on. And the trick is, how did I get this to bake out? See, I've stumped myself. Bake from object. The distance I've been using for normals and everything is 100. Of course not. Make sure that there's no texture in the high poly. That's important. If you're doing any normal map baking and you've got a high poly, when it comes to displacement, and there's a UV map in there, here it's just going to go through the roof. The rendering just doesn't know what to do with itself, even if you've got the low poly texture selected. If there's still one UV map selected on your high poly, it causes issues, which throws up the problem if you're going to be using any displacements using, let me see, a texture locator to UV map. And so keep that in mind. I hate when modo does that. When I click, I want to click off, and I click here and I get this shit. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Okay, dots. This is alpha map I'm going to bake out, so I'm just going to try it from object texture. See what he does. We don't want this. We want the diffuse coefficient. You have to have anti-aliasing on. Keep that in mind if you want padding on your UVs with a diffuse coefficient. If that's turned off, even if you've got the alpha, if you've got your alpha turned off, you won't get padding. If you've got your alpha turned on, diffuse coefficient and anti-aliasing turned off, you won't get padding. Took a while for me to work it out, so there you go. Bake from object to texture, and there we go. And it's important that this alpha map has UVs, or you're going to get those edges caused by the displacement. Bingo. So that one was live. It doesn't use much power for anything. It's just alpha map. Get rid of this, we don't need it. So we've got our nice UVs, we've got our nice ambient occlusion, and we've got our nice alpha map. That's the second time I've baked it. So in alpha map in Marmoset, you should add it to your albedo map in the alpha channel. But you can do it here too with transparency. I'm going to round this segment up with add. Let's just add the alpha map. And I'll change it to include the diffuse. I think I changed the channel. There we go. So now you see it. You'll get the same effect if you add the alpha to your albedo map. You know what I mean? It will be there. And we've lost a bit of depth here because we don't have a curvature map. When you add a curvature map to this, you're going to get more depth, definitely. Decrease that, and let's get this alpha map working. Bring in a new light. He's in the middle. Pull him up. He's right in the middle of that box. And your game engine's the same. Most cold back faces. If you've got cold back faces on, if you look through something, you're not going to see the backside, and we don't want that because we've got an alpha map. We want to see what's going on in the background. As you can see right now, I think I'm on the wrong channel here. Let's change that. G alpha. Brightness. We want the light to be the brightness. Distance. Okay. And so you've got the inside. Might be a bit trippy for some people because we've got the cold back faces turned on. You do the same. I can't remember the function in Unreal Engine, but you're doing exactly the same. You're calling, if you turn that off, you're calling the backspaces, but you want it on for alpha type situations. And then you've got, of course, your backdrop brightness on the outside. I will actually turn that to right down. I actually was getting better results earlier. I don't think that it was cut out. Yeah, cut out. There we go. So you see how lovely that is, and that's without a curvature map. Once I'll do the second part. We'll add a curvature map, and we'll stick an albedo texture on that, and actually do add the alpha correctly in the albedo here, which will be the same as in your game engine. But you can see that's pretty decent, apart from where we're getting now on the inside. This I haven't noticed before, actually. Here. But I'm not gonna freak out and worry about that right now, because this is looking pretty good. For don't forget, folks, it's 24 verts, 12 tries, boxy type of thing. Can I change the albedo? Yeah, so you've got the option to change colors to whatever. Change the light color, and I'll go red. So it's a bit different distance, brightness. Funky chickens and all that stuff. So you've got the nice rounded edge. As a recap, that's our ambient, that's our alpha map, that's our ambient occlusion, and that's our nice normals. And then we're going to, in the next part I'll do the curvature, which is easy to set up in Modo, and I'll throw a quick texture on this box. And I think you can see how powerful this is, even if we got this edge running in the inside here, which doesn't really matter, does it? For a low poly object, this is beautiful. Okay, I'll see you in part 2. Bye bye.